including what will be in War Notes tomorrow. Is President Biden planning on bowing out? There's some very interesting leaks coming out of the White House. WarNotes.com to subscribe. Here's Chris.
Hey, I'm Chris Cuomo. A little tease ahead in the show. We have a very important development in a case we've all been following. A major arrest in the missing persons case involving Anna Knezovic. Remember that name? Right here in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, where I am. She's been missing 3+ months. Disappeared visiting Spain during an increasingly intense divorce. The basis for the arrest? Very impressive. Much more proof than we're used to seeing this early in a potential prosecution. That's ahead. But first, some food for thought. Israel is bombing Rafah as we speak. It's happening right now, okay? The Middle East is going to get more bloody, all right? They say, Israel, that's where Hamas is, and that's why they have to do it. The other side of it is, but there was so little warning in a very densely populated area. And even if they had time, there's almost nowhere that's safe to move all those people. So it's going to be bloody, and it's going to outrage people. The Middle East conflict will get worse. We're going to talk to a policy expert in a moment, and then get takes from former Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard and the one and only Geraldo Rivera. But know this. Israel bombing in Rafah is going to kill any ceasefire deal. Or some will say, no, Cuomo, it will actually make one happen. We'll see. But for sure, there's going to be more chaos here at home while they're bombing in Rafah. Now, I still want to know why the deal on the table isn't Hamas, return all the hostages, and then Israel, you have leverage to tell them to pull back because they got their people back. Okay? And then what you do is, well, who knows? This has been a generational dilemma, okay? We need much better minds sitting at a table for a long time with the Arab neighborhood finally putting their feet where their mouths are. And if they care so much about Palestine, they should get in there and start doing things for those people instead of just using them as a mascot when it suits their purposes. So I have two major points about what's happening at home, okay? Number one, do not cancel the graduations. Don't move them. Deal with the protesters. Find a course to conversation and remind that there are rules, that there are responsibilities, and there are ramifications. You have given too many concessions that have created a false sense of righteousness and control. Not to mention, you are burdening the many for the few. And for these kids, this graduating class, a lot of them already missed graduation due to COVID in high school. And now you're bowing to the wrong people for the wrong reasons at the wrong time. And again, I ask, where are the parents? Who is letting their kids disrupt their own graduation? And why? Saturday Night Live really nailed it with their spoof on parents' perspective on these protests. Do you see this?
I think it's just great, you know, it's wonderful. Nothing makes me prouder than young people using their voices to fight for what they believe in.
Wow, that's very encouraging.
Yeah. Alphonse, your daughter must feel so supported when she's out there.
What's that now? when whose daughter is out there?
At the protest.
No, man. You bugging.
Right? Now, how many parents should be asked, hey, isn't this your kid? You okay with this? Now, we have Columbia on Keenan's sweatshirt. We also have Columbia law in the mix. The students there are asking for exams to be canceled due to all the trauma from campus chaos. First, great job, Columbia. You failed to do the main job. All that money, all that prestige you get. You can't keep kids in a position to learn and perform. You failed at your own job. Second, students, wake up and smell the reality. If you think you're traumatized now, wait until you practice. No partner will ever give you a pass for being stressed. Life is about pain and stress management. Take the tests, show resilience. It's what life is about. Third, final and biggest, okay? Graduation, grades, these are real concerns, but they're short money, okay? This is what worries me about the protests, and we're going to have to really deal with this or it's going to deal with us. Show the picture. Show the picture of what they love to show everyone in Iran. Not these kids with the Sadat scarves, although that's part of it, okay? I'm not worried about the protests themselves. This is the image that I want you to focus on, okay? This is what the extreme Islamist world loves putting all over their media. White people, Americans specifically, because there are plenty of white Muslims, by the way, but white American non-Muslims prostrate before them. I don't have a problem with the protests, okay? To be clear, if you have something you don't agree with and you want to protest, that's great. It's a signature mechanism of American democracy. Go for it. I do question, though, why the same people who are coming at me so aggressively and adamantly online don't want to put their name to what they say to me online, and they want to cover their faces when they protest. If you're so proud, if you're so invested, show who you are. Maybe it's because you know that you're breaking the laws, and the school may let you get away with it, but society will not. Which you should know shows how privileged you are. You can pretend to be from Gaza, but you're not. And this is not what happens to regular rioters. No catering when you break and enter, all right? No catering to your demands when on private property either. However, what cannot get a pass are the looming questions about who's feeding these protests, who's financing them, the kinds of ideas that are being propagated for the most part online, specifically TikTok. And that's why there's so many of these protesters who don't attend the schools. And within those groups, insurgents, you got to look for these pocket groups that want to destroy our democracy, to make bad trouble, to seed agendas of extreme thought and fundamentalism that can lead to a radicalism that will be very difficult to eradicate in America, to combat it on its terms, and really to recover from it in any kind of short time frame. This is where some are going to say, no, you're going too far. You're going too far. It's not that big a deal. That's the picture, okay? My concern is not white kids converting to Islam per se. There are plenty of white Muslims. It's why they are prostrating themselves, why they're wearing the scarves, what it makes them susceptible to. You have a generation that is uniquely desperate for a reason to believe in something bigger than themselves. A generation that believes it must pay the price for privilege. We have made privilege such a sword and a shield. It's everywhere. It's always a battle line. And this generation has been the most saturated with it. And as such, is uniquely comfortable appropriating the suffering of other groups to which they don't belong specifically. Anything to get the stink of privilege off of them, because it's so bad to have good things in your life. Now, this dynamic is not always a negative. As we saw in the 60s, it was the motivation of young people among the majority that led to more rights for minorities. It was a huge catalyst. We often need members of the powerful to help those being denied equality. However, we've seen recently with BLM and LGBTQ+, that community, pockets of it, activists often more concerned about who and what they are against than what they're for. Not progress, but attacking perceived opponents. Crowdsourced consequences. The media love to play into that, right? Harnessing cancel culture. Attacking cultural norms, mores, institutions, ending anything and anyone that does not bend to their will quickly or far enough. This is not protest, nor mere advocacy for change. It starts to look more like and feel like and act like fundamentalism. And while, look, arguing about what is and not okay within your own culture, that happens. It's hard enough. Taking on the cause of extreme Islamism as a way of showing you are not elite, that you are not privileged? Oh, no, they're just into Islam. No. And here's why. This is not about ranking religions or one being better than the other. It's all about how you use religion. Okay? It doesn't matter what the religion is. I'm not like the former president who's going to say Islam hates us. It's about how you use faith in your life, okay? But these kids are especially susceptible to extreme ideas of a faith that is foreign to them on many levels, especially when the attraction is born of the most violent of circumstances to which the faith is applied. Intifada, jihad. That's why we keep pointing out to those members of the LGBTQ plus community who believe there's a kinship with Gaza and the suffering there, or even with Hamas, as freedom fighters. The group that you put on equal footing with Israel, the group you say are freedom fighters, they don't see you as equal. They see you as an abomination. At the same time, the idea of just condemning the kids on campus, everything they do is wrong, everything they say is meaningless, they're just rich little spoiled kids, that misses the mark by a lot, okay? The solution here is not to demean. You're only going to wind up having them double down, okay? You can't tell people not to feel the way they feel. You got to meet them where they are and figure out how you get them to a better place. If they believe that their lives of privilege require them to take up the suffering of others, good. They're right. To whom much have been given, much is expected. They can and should do that, but they need to understand root causes and present realities. And they have to understand what is responsible and what is actually doing good for others. Okay? Attacking everyone and everything that doesn't agree with you is not progress. It's not about just destroying what you oppose. When you do it that way, as you are doing it right now, you are proving why people like me are worried for and about you and your advocacy, because you're starting to sound like extremists, not agents of a good cause. And the last point about that picture, you know who's using it the most? The extreme Islamist community and their outlets. Like in Iran, they love this picture because it shows Americans literally bending to their will, showing that they're right about condemning and destroying everything that America's about. My brothers and sisters, we do have an enemy, okay? And it is not each other. It is extreme fundamentalist thought. If you want to pin it on extreme Islamism, you can right now, because there is a huge preponderance in that community. But know this, every moment that we attack ourselves, we are making ourselves weaker and we are making the real enemy stronger. Now, let's get perspective from a better mind. Former U.S. Special Envoy for Israeli-Palestinian negotiations under President Obama, Frank Lowenstein. It's good to have you, Frank.
Thanks for having me.
So, what's happening in Rafah right now, does this make it more or less likely that you get a ceasefire deal?
I think it's a reflection of the fact that there is no meaningful opportunity for a ceasefire here. I think Hamas was playing a cynical game today, pretending to accept an offer that Israel had never made. They had no intention of entering into any kind of meaningful agreement here. I'm not sure the Israelis did either, but certainly in Hamas's case, they knew that the underlying issue of whether this was a permanent ceasefire or a temporary ceasefire had not been resolved. So they pretended to accept an offer that had a permanent ceasefire when there was nothing of the sort on the table. So I think this is posturing to blame Israel for the failure of the negotiations.
But Israel is taking the opportunity to prove their critics right? And while there's supposed to be negotiations ongoing, they are doing what's on the screen right now in an area where they know the innocent were not able to get out.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. You look at what the parties, both sides, look at what they do and not what they say. So Israel's saying on the one hand, we're going to send some low-level negotiators to Cairo to continue the negotiations. At the same time, they are bombing areas in Rafah, but they've also announced their intention as early as tonight to take over what's called the Philadelphia corridor, which is the area in between the Egyptian border and the city of Rafah, essentially to cut off Rafah from the Egyptian border. That's a major military operation there, and it suggests to me that the Israelis aren't taking these negotiations seriously at all. Moreover, they don't seem to be taking the Biden administration's admonitions about not beginning this Rafah incursion seriously at all. So I think it could be heading into a place where Biden and the Israelis are openly fighting one another over this Rafah situation.
What can Biden really do to control what Israel does?
Very little. But the one thing I can tell you won't have any impact on the Israelis is what Biden says. It's only what he does. And in all honesty, I think the only thing that would really get the Israelis' attention is to threaten to condition military assistance, right? If we said to the Israelis, hey, we're not going to give you any more weapons, if you don't start listening to us in terms of Rafah, then you might see the Israelis change their posture. If all he's doing is saying, hey, we really don't want you to do this, I don't think the Israelis care about that at all.
Yeah, but, look, we know, and people who've been following this know, Bibi was dead man walking before all this, okay? They can't hold elections right now. And even if somebody did beat him, which I think is highly likely, even by their most current polls, the policies probably wouldn't change vis-a-vis what's happening in Gaza and eventually the West Bank. So politically, doesn't he need exactly what's happening now just to stay in power, which is we can't hold elections, it's too kinetic, it's too fraught?
Yeah, 100%. And that's been a major concern of the Biden administration all the way along, which is that Bibi has a political agenda that runs exactly counter to what Biden's trying to get done here. And at any opportunity to take his political path rather than the policy path, especially with respect to the United States, Bibi will take that. And it's important to know he's pandering, in effect, to some of the most extreme elements of the Israeli government that he needs for his political survival. So we are, in effect, dealing with an Israeli government that's being driven by some of the most extreme folks in any government anywhere. And that makes it really hard for Biden.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, to me, the indicator of that is that Bibi's not saying, give us back all our people, and then we'll start making concessions. He's not doing that. He's doing the campaign. He doesn't believe he's going to get the hostages back. And frankly, I don't think it's his primary priority. Not to criticize his morality or any sense like that. I think strategically, it's not where his head is. Mr. Lowenstein, thank you so much for your intelligence. Appreciate you putting your head to this for us. We'll discuss again. 4 minutes, 5 seconds. When we come back, Tulsi Gabbard, okay? Big future leader in this country, ran for president as a Democrat, says she's sick of the party game, and she thinks you should be also. She's an independent. Now we're hearing that the former president, Donald Trump, may have her name in the mix. Really? What does she think of that? What does she think about what's happening in the Middle East? And what does she think about what's happening here at home, on campus, and elsewhere? She's got a great new book, For Love of Country. Leave the Democrat Party behind, she says. Democrat Party? I thought it was Democratic. She knows. Next. As that is to suggest, now it doesn't sound so crazy.
It's not that crazy, Chris, because we've seen it happen in some of these European countries, and to see how it's taken hold in the wake of this horrific terrorist attack on October 7th, both here in the United States and in countries around the world, seeing people rise up and yelling pro-Hamas mantras, calling for genocide against Jews, calling for October 7th 10,000 times over. You know, whether or not they fully understand what radical Islamist ideology is, I'm concerned about it, because our own leadership in the United States, leaders in the West, are not standing up and combating that ideological warfare these Islamist groups are waging with the superior ideology of, for us, what does it mean to live free, to be able to speak freely, but maintain the peace? This is what needs to happen. And unfortunately, President Biden, he seems to be afraid of being called an Islamophobe, which is why he's shirking away from a very clear statement of standing against anti-Semitism, for free speech, and against this radical Islamist ideology.
Last quick thing, and again, the book is For Love of Country. I talked to Tulsi about it extensively. It's going to be coming out on my podcast. It is a great read of why Tulsi did what she did. Leaving a party is not easy. So the former President Trump, your name is supposedly on a short list. Do you agree with that statement? Would you serve with President Trump?
I've heard the same thing that you have. If asked to serve in that way, I would be honored. I'd be honored to serve my country, to try to bring about the transformational change that we need, both here at home and domestic policy, addressing things like border security and addressing our economy, addressing things like Title IX and protecting women and girls' fairness in sports and educational opportunities, and addressing the many challenges that exist on the foreign policy front that have been created specifically because of the Biden-Harris administration's failure of leadership.
Tulsi Gabbard, I appreciate it. If it becomes Trump Gabbard, I look forward to our next conversation, but I look forward to it anyway. Thank you for making the case to my audience.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, be well. All right, let's bring in Geraldo. and get his take. Trump Gabbard.
Hey,
what do you think of that, Geraldo?
I think it would be a very potent ticket, Chris. I think that she is a very formidable candidate. I love that she was a GI, an officer in the military, spent time in the conflict zones. She's got guts physically and politically. I enjoy listening to her. I think she's modern. She'd be a good balance, I think, with Trump and make it a very, very formidable ticket. I like her a lot more than I like Kristi Noem, for example, the South Dakota governor who killed her dog.
You better be careful. She's going to shoot your dogs, Geraldo. She may shoot you too, pal. You're an old dog.
My dogs are out of control. I got. I think you have some may have some video. But first, let's hear what Kristi Noem had to say on Face the Nation about shooting Cricket, her dog, if you don't mind.
At the end of the book, you say the very first thing you would do if you got to the White House that was different from Joe Biden is you'd make sure Joe Biden's dog was nowhere on the grounds. Commander, say hello to Cricket.
Well, number one, Joe Biden's dog has attacked 24 Secret Service people. So how many people is enough people to be attacked and dangerously hurt before you make a decision on a dog and what to do with it?
Well, he's not living at the White House
That's
anymore.
a question that the president should be held accountable to.
You're saying he should be
that's
shot?
What the president
Shoot a dog. Vote for me.
Shoot a dog. Now, I just for comparison, I want to show you some really dysfunctional dogs at play. Here's some video of my dog, Skipper, my Labrador, who doesn't retrieve. I also have some Maltipoos who do more of the macho chasing. There's Skipper. He's got that guilty look on his face. But do you have the video of him tearing up the couch?
A multi-poo? What's a multi-poo?
Multi-poos. There they are. There's two. They're, I don't know. It's a breed that they're 15 years old. My wife loves them.
Geraldo, if you ever say the word, if you say the word multi-poo, if you say the word multi-poo the next time we're head-to-head, I'm going to swing at you and you'll probably knock me out. But multi-poo is a violation of man law. You're not allowed to say it.
Is that right? He thinks he's a lap dog. He's he's a very funny, very
great.
Ill-disciplined. But Kristi Noem, spectacular burnout already. I think Tulsi Gabbard is a provocative idea, going outside the box. I like her better than most of the candidates I have heard mentioned. Should be a good balance. And it would be a very formidable race. I'd like to see her debating Kamala Harris. I think it would be an excellent vice presidential debate. And give some verb. They both, of an age where they still have physical, verb to do it all.
Oh, yeah, especially compared to the guys they'd be surfing with. I mean, it's not even a contest. If it were a tag team wrestling match, I would take Harris and certainly Tulsi against the other two guys. But it is nice that I guess we still agree. We agree on one thing at least, Geraldo, not you and me. I love you. But America, you shoot a dog, I don't want to hear anything else from you ever again. Kristi Noem is going to come on the show, and I've got to say to her, you can't justify shooting a dog to people unless it's attacking you or a child about to kill you.
Right.
I got to hear where her head was on that. I get lying about meeting Kim Jong-un. I get it. People lie about who they meet all the time to make them look like a bigger deal. That I get. But not backing off of shooting a dog because it didn't behave? That's, at least everybody still agrees that that's a no-go zone. We got that going for us.
A no-go zone. And, on the serious side, I know you've been talking a lot about Gaza and a lot about Rafah and a lot about the IDF soldiers who got killed with that mortar attack early this morning. The one thing, and I love our relationship and you are my brother. The one thing, if I can give a lesson, is the pessimists are always right in the Middle East. Whatever you think is going to happen, it will be worse. And so I think that after all these months, after 7 hard, bloody months, you ain't seen nothing yet. And if the bombs start dropping in Rafah, the protests will be regenerated here in this country. I lament the future if this thing isn't wrapped up. And it just seems that Hamas didn't want a negotiated settlement. They just wanted Israel to slaughter more, to kill more civilians, so Israel would have blood on his hands. Hamas would say, see, we're the victims, we're the good guys. And that picture of you showed with the kids paying homage, it's only just begun, Chris, I fear.
Well, the one thing that I will say, there are many things that I think Israel can rightly be criticized for in this situation and in years past. They're making a big mistake not letting us go there and cover what's happening in real time. They say we want to keep you safe. That's not their job to keep journalists safe. We know what it's like to be in conflict zones. There are people who are way better at it than I am, like you, frankly, who know how to do it. They should let journalists do the job and show people the reality. Otherwise, it looks like they're hiding it. It looks like they're hiding it. Geraldo, thank you very much. I appreciate you.
I love you, brother. Okay, man. Thank you.
I love you. You're the best, even though you said multi-poo. Multi-poo-poo. Multi-poo. Whatever it was. I didn't like it. 4 minutes, 30 seconds. Up next, we finally have a major break in the case of Florida resident Anna Knezevic. 93 days she went missing in Spain. So many of you were so frustrated. She's going through a hard divorce and these weird messages. I mean, what's going on? Who else could have done it? Where's the husband? A big arrest, but more importantly than the arrest, listen to this, the reasons for it. I got them. Next. He's here to deal with something that was dealing with their properties, but he was arrested, charged with her kidnapping. Why kidnapping? The simple answer, no body, okay? And when you don't have a body, it's tough to make a case for a homicide, okay? It's tough to make any case, frankly. Anna and David were going through a nasty divorce. Here's what we learned in the documents. Much more than you usually get in a probable cause statement, by the way. So 13 years of marriage, Anna decided to go to Madrid, right? They were having problems. She wanted to rebuild her life. Anna speaks to a friend on the phone around 10 p.m. Last time anyone hears from her. About a half hour earlier, a man wearing a motorcycle helmet was seen surveilling cameras in her apartment building, okay? We always assumed that couldn't have been the husband. Guess who doesn't agree with that? The authorities. The next day, two of Anna's friends received texts from Anna saying she had met a guy on the street and was going to his summer house and that the signal was spotty, so she'd have to call when she got back. The friends knew something was wrong for two reasons. One, they knew Anna, and she'd never just meet a guy and take off and not tell them anything about it. Two, she is a fluent Spanish speaker, and the text sounded like they were written by somebody who is not fluent. David and Anna owned several businesses together. Anna reportedly wanted to split everything 50-50. David did not. Is that enough for murder? Well, this is what's in the complaint, okay? Security camera footage of a man resembling David seen in Madrid purchasing spray paint on February 2nd. We'd never heard that before. Later that night, a man resembling David seen in a helmet spray painting Anna's security camera and then leaving the building with a suitcase at 10:30 p.m. We never heard that before. His WhatsApp history. David asked a woman to translate a message into, quote, perfect Colombian. We never heard that before. The same message was sent from Anna's phone after she disappeared. After she disappeared. Same message. Never heard that before. Car rental. David rented a car in Serbia from January 29 to March 15. Returned it with different plates, newly tinted windows, and additional miles. Guess how many? 4,770. Guess where that could take you? Serbia, Madrid, and back. Original plates reported stolen where? Anna's Street in Madrid. Insurance impersonation. March 4, a woman pretending to be Anna calls and cancels 3 car insurance policies. April 24, a woman tells cops David instructed her to impersonate Anna. This is damning if demonstrable. I'll say it again. This is damning if demonstrable, meaning if they can show it as well as I just read it, he's got problems. NewsNation law and justice contributor, former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer, Florida State Attorney Dave Aronberg. Dave, I got to tell you, you told me, well, I don't know what they're going to be able to do here. Man, they got a lot more than I ever even imagined.
This is really good police work, Chris, and this is why it took so long. They were building a case. Without a body, they needed to come up with as much circumstantial evidence as possible, and they've got a mountain of it. I mean, I bet you Jennifer has worked on cases where you have a lot less than this. We have prosecuted murder cases with less circumstantial evidence than this. This is a really good one. Kudos to law enforcement. They really did come up with the goods.
All right, so now let me combat you guys a little bit. First of all, Coffindaffer, thank you very much for staying on this. Thank you for keeping it alive online. This was not a popular case for people where, the pack chased it, so thank you. He's going to say, wasn't me. Jennifer, he's going to say, wasn't me. May look like me. It's not me. What makes him unable to get out of this in your estimation?
He's left way too many breadcrumbs that connect him to it. First of all, those conversations with the translator, and then the translator goes to her mother and says, hey, listen, this is a guy I'm kind of seeing from online, gives him the name, and she looks up. And sure enough, on Google search, the name, wait a minute, his wife's missing. And by the way, what you translated, I just saw in a media post. So that connects him. He's in a lot of trouble. All those words that you see there on your screen, he's responsible for.
No body, Dave. No body. How do you make a case when you have no body if he doesn't tell you anything?
It happens all the time, Chris. We have prosecuted many cases without a body. You just have to have enough circumstantial evidence, and here I think you do. Plus, you really do need to show a jury a strong motive, because juries want to know the why. Even though it's not an element of the crime, you don't have to prove it as a prosecutor, but jurors, especially with a lack of a body, want to know why. Why would he do this? Well, this is an easy why, and that is financial, a marriage gone bad. Everyone can understand that. And because you've got an easy motive to understand, an amount of circumstantial evidence, although it would be nice to have a body, you don't need it to get a conviction for murder. And I think that charge is forthcoming.
What do you think about that, Jennifer?
I totally agree. The circumstantial evidence here is great. And I always say circumstantial evidence is just as strong, if not stronger, than direct evidence. If you look outside and it didn't snow, or you look outside and it's green, and the next day you look outside and there's snow, it snowed. And that is this kind of case. Also, remember, the employee is the one that is linked to that insurance call about canceling 3 insurance policies. That was one of his employees, another direct connect to him.
All right, guys, I got to jump. Thank you very much for this. Of course, we're going to stay on it. Jennifer Coffindaffer, appreciate you. Dave Aronberg, as always, thank you from the beginning. 3 minutes, 45 seconds. Up next, your say, 844-968-7720.
Hey, Chris. What do you think about taking the arrested protesters and having them clean up the mess they made on campuses? This will not only save overtime for sanitation workers, but it will also teach a lesson to those that are out there protesting.
I have no problem with people protesting. I have no problem with people paying for what they did. I love the first part of the idea. To discourage people from protesting, no. But to show that if you go from being a protester to being a criminal and a rioter, then there's a price to be paid. Next.
Next, we're going to go to Mary from Cincinnati.
Mary, what's your question?
It seems to me I wanted to ask the question that why does it seem that so many people are justifying all those Palestinians being killed, and even the media seems to think that it has something to do with Hamas, when actually there are hundreds of thousands of people actually being killed, women and children. And I don't know the justification of it.
Well, justification is a tricky word. Does Hamas have responsibility? Absolutely. But for them, none of this would have happened, because this was precipitated by what happened on October 7th, which was planned to bring about exactly this. You have to remember, you and I think that, well, even if we don't like somebody, we don't want them to come in and destroy our house and kill all our family. Hamas doesn't think like that. Their cause is very long range, to destroy who they see as infidels, specifically with Hamas, to destroy Jews and Israel. So they're fine sacrificing innocents. They're fine hiding in tunnels while people above get destroyed. They're fine with it because they're not about, life is cheap for them. They are thinking long term. That is the problem with Islamist extremism, that life is cheap for them, because they have their eyes on a prize that can be very far in the future. Now, the idea that saying, well, because of what happened October 7th, everything that followed is fine, I don't accept that. There's too much death. There's too much indiscriminate killing. There should be more aid. There should be media on the ground. And there should be more pressure brought to bear on Hamas to bring the hostages back, and that should be the triggering mechanism to move Israel off land that it is not theirs. Next.
Okay, next, we know him, we love him. He's from Michigan, Mr. Positive, Greg.
Mr. Positive, what's your question?
Hey, Chris, thanks for taking my call. Hopefully you're feeling better. Hey, does canceling graduations embolden and motivate the protesters even more, and how is it doing it?
It shows weakness at a time where you should be showing strength, and that there's a standard, and that you don't fear protest. And I thought Michigan handled it very well. And just to be clear, I do believe my doctors that I have long COVID. I don't know that it has anything to do with getting the vaccine. I think people do have legitimate questions and concerns about their health because of the vaccine. And even if it is a very small percentage of people, it should still get the full attention of our government. And there should be a lot more discussion and a lot more understanding of what's going on. Even if it's not the reason for my symptoms, it doesn't mean that they don't matter. And it doesn't matter how small the percentage is. I think that the future of these protests is going to be violence, because there are too many people that are playing to the fundamentalist roots of Islamism, which has nothing to do with God-fearing Muslims who are just monotheistic people who are trying to use religion to motivate a better self. Islamism in the extreme is very different. And these kids are coming to what they think is a faith, but what it really is just a death pact that is all about evil and evil intentions. All right. Take a break, 4 minutes, 45 seconds. If there's time, final thought on the other side.
Smokey the Bear. Then you know why Smokey tells you when he sees you passing through. Remember, please be careful, it's the least that you can do. What you desire, don't play with matches, don't play with fire.
After 80 years of learning his wildfire prevention tips, Smokey Bear lives within us all. Learn more at SmokeyBear.com. And remember,
only you can prevent wildfires.
Brought to you by the USDA Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
If you have $10,000 or more in credit card, medical, or personal loan debt, let National Debt Relief's award-winning team negotiate with your creditors to drastically reduce what you owe. Inflation and living expenses are skyrocketing, and Americans are relying on credit cards more than ever. With the recent decision to keep interest rates higher than they've been in years, your debt is not getting any cheaper. Start your debt-free journey with National Debt Relief today. Go to nationaldebtrelief.com right now to start your free consultation. That's nationaldebtrelief.com.
Are you prepared for an emergency or disaster? Because it's not a matter of if, but when. Don't find yourself saying,
when the storm rolls in, my time to find a pet-friendly evacuation center will have run out.
The scorching heat wave will leave me powerless to cool my insulin.
I'll face a hurricane without meds. Now that's a tough pill to swallow.
Let's prepare so we all have a better story to tell. Get started at ready.gov/older adults. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
I'm Ashley Banfield, and you're listening to America's fastest growing cable news network, NewsNation. News for all America.
We're with Liam after his fourth military move, when being new is starting to get old. We're with Tara during the holidays, when she misses home the most. We're with all service members and their families who need connection, comfort, and a home away from home. Are you with them? Learn more at USO.org today.
Your kids could get free or low-cost health coverage from Medicaid or CHIP. Even if you've applied before, they may be eligible now. Kids up to age 19 are covered for checkups, vaccines, dentist visits, hospital care, and more. And if they already have Medicaid or CHIP, remember to renew every year. Visit insurekidsnow.gov or call 877-KIDS-NOW. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
If I would have kept making only the minimum payments on my credit cards, my debt would have taken me 47 years to pay off.
These are real National Debt Relief customers.
I knew I wasn't going to be able to get out of debt by myself.
Credit card, medical, or personal loan debt? National Debt Relief negotiates with your creditors to reduce what you owe.
National Debt Relief got me out of debt.
You could be debt-free in as little as 24 to 48 months. Visit nationaldebtrelief.com to learn more and get started. nationaldebtrelief.com.
Pregnancy-related deaths in the U.S. are on the rise. The reason? Cardiovascular disease. And Black, Hispanic, and Native American women are the most at risk.
I never thought my pregnancy could cause heart failure.
I experienced my first heart attack after the birth of my son.
But high blood pressure, gestational hypertension, and diabetes can put mom and baby at risk.
Visit goredforwomen.org/pregnancy to learn more, because my health is our health.
Additional benefits available in your zip code. You can call now to find out if you're eligible to enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan with additional benefits. Just call 800-341-2906 and a licensed insurance agent can look up your eligibility and plan options and see if you're eligible to enroll in a Medicare Part C plan that could save money and include additional benefits. Don't wait. You are not automatically enrolled in a Part C plan with additional benefits. So call for your free, no obligation Medicare benefits review and make sure you're on the best plan for you. Call now to find out what plan options are available to you. The call is free. Call 800-341-2906.